Greetings once again, comrades. I have been approached since we arrived here Friday, of course, Friday evening, and of course, even prior to that, people have been contacting me through social media in regard to the developing situation in the southern African state of Zimbabwe. This is a very, very important issue. First of all, we have to understand, as a party, Workers' World for decades has been in support of the national liberation struggles against colonialism and settler colonialism and neo-colonialism in Africa and indeed throughout the world. The nation of Zimbabwe became a colony as a direct result of the military, economic, and political suppression of the majority African population in that nation. During the latter decades of the 19th century, as personified by Cecil Rhodes and others, the country was taken over by British imperialism. They took the country over. Thousands upon thousands of Zimbabweans were massacred by the British during the 1890s. Lobengula, who was one of the leading chiefs of the Matabele people, rose up against British imperialism. Their people were severely oppressed and suppressed. In 1897, there was what has been described as the first Shimbaringa, the first liberation war, which was headed by an African woman named Nahanda, along with her comrade Kagubi. They fought the British. They went into hiding. Eventually, they were captured and executed by British officials in Zimbabwe. The second Shimbaringa, of course, began in the 1960s. During the period of the rise of the national liberation movements in Africa, not just in Zimbabwe, but in Mozambique, and Angola, and Guinea-Bissau, and Algeria, and various geopolitical regions throughout the continent, there were national liberation struggles. Some took on a more political character, for example, in the former British colony of the Gold Coast in West Africa, which later became Ghana. Algeria, of course, there was an armed revolutionary struggle that triumphed against French imperialism. Over the last few days, of course, the divisions within the ZANU party, the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front Party, which is the overwhelming majority party inside of Zimbabwe, have come to an head. The military took over the state media early Wednesday morning to announce that it was not a coup d'etat that was taking place, but they were attempting to do some corrections against individuals who were surrounding President Robert Mugabe. On Thursday, the Southern African Development Community, the regional organization, sent a mediation team to Harare to meet with both factions of ZANU-PF. Friday, the President, Robert Mugabe, presided over a graduation ceremony at Zimbabwe Open University to dispel the notion that he was being held under house arrest. What we saw yesterday was a demonstration of thousands of people in the capital of Harare. The demonstration had been called by the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association several days before. Today, there was a Central Committee meeting of ZANU-PF, which made a decision to recall President Robert Mugabe. He has until tomorrow to resign. Otherwise, the parliament, which is largely controlled by ZANU-PF, will institute impeachment proceedings against the president. But what we have to keep in mind is that this is a lesson for all revolutionary parties in terms of how we deal with internal contradictions and internal divisions within the Revolutionary Party. Fortunately, no one has been hurt, no one has been killed. People are not fighting in the streets in Zimbabwe. This has been a very politicized process, and we're following the situation very, very closely. But what's important is that we defend the right of the people of Zimbabwe to make their own decisions about their own future, independent of U.S. imperialism. If you read the editorials in the Washington Post and the BBC and other corporate media and government-controlled media outlets, they want a counter-revolution in Zimbabwe. They want the land reform process that was instituted 17 years ago reversed. But as the situation stands now, it does not appear as if they are getting their wishes in regard to a counter-revolution in Zimbabwe. We support the right of the Zimbabwean people to determine their own destiny. We will continue to support revolutionary movements throughout the African continent. Thank you so much for your time and your interest.